Good morning, good morning. Are we good? Okay. Hey guys, good morning. I am hopping in to do our scheduled Facebook Live on gluten and some gluten-free options for those of you who are transitioning from eating a more standard American diet to something that is a little bit healthier for you. So a little bit of background on gluten itself. So it's a protein found in gluten, in wheat, and also rye and barley products. So if you have any of those types of products which are derived from wheat, rye, barley, it's going to naturally contain gluten. Hey John, how you doing? So those are very inflammatory to a large percentage of people systems, okay, from anywhere from brain inflammation to other inflammatory reactions in the system. So any of those foods are foods that we want to either limit or some of us need to completely remove from our diets. Gluten can be found in anything from breads and pastas and crackers to pastries and soy sauce even. It's hidden everywhere, so it's really confusing when you start to make this transition. So today, I'm going to show you some of my favorite products that are gluten-free and or grain-free. That we can start using on a limited basis, because these are still processed foods, but they're really nice to have in our cupboards for our kids, in our car, in our bag at work, in our whatever. So we need to have some smart alternatives. So a little bit about gluten itself. Decades ago, the farmers in our country started to want to surplus and produce more wheat products. If you go back to that 1980s food pyramid that I talk about, where along the bottom there's like 12 different grain options for us to start our day on. So the government started giving subsidies to farmers who were growing more wheat. Well, wheat and certain cultures do really well and others don't, and it's pretty susceptible to pests. And what started to happen, they took the original wheat plant, something that would be similar to an einkorn plant, very natural, and started to pump in more gluten into the plant. So it became a genetically modified, engineered organism, plant that we are now used to consuming, but it's not in its natural form. Hey Russ, good morning to you. So when we start adding 3 to 4 times the amount of gluten into this protein into the plant, the wheat plant became sturdier, so it became stockier. Good morning, Jeff. And the other thing it became was a little bit more pest resistant. So the farmers were like, shoot, if I can get more money based off of the amount of wheat I can grow on my acreage, I'm going to get these genetically modified seeds, plant them so that I have a higher chance, I have a higher ROI, right? I'm investing in these seeds. There's a higher chance that I'm going to be able to, produce the wheat, harvest the wheat. It's not going to be damaged by, wind. Okay, so we've got these nice, tall, beautiful plants, and they became stockier with the genetic modification, which meant they were less susceptible to breaking and, high winds and erosion and then the pests, okay? So the problem is we start introducing 3 times the amount of gluten into our diet, it starts to bring on this inflammatory response. So it's crazy. And the amount that we're eating bread. So back before the 1970s, in like the 30s, 40s, 50s, people were having bread maybe once a day. It was not like the staple of their diet. Now, we can't go one meal without having some type. Hey John, we can't go one meal without having a ridiculous amount of gluten, from the cereals we're giving our kids, don't get me started on the sugar, but the cereals, the bagels, the English muffins, the toast, the pastries, I mean, it drives me absolutely insane because we're starting our day off on a genetically modified food and gluten, right? Okay, so gluten can cause loads of inflammation to the brain especially. So mood disorders, fatigue, anxiety, disruptions in our serotonin and our dopamine. It's going to throw off things like cortisol and melatonin. And so we start to have all of these issues in the brain, but if we're susceptible, we will also have these inflammatory responses throughout other parts of our body because it is building up that chronic inflammation. That chronic inflammation, when we're talking about getting in chronic symptoms or chronic autoimmune diseases, we've got this stool and we've got 4 legs on that stool, and one of those legs is always inflammation coming from a food source. That's why I'm so passionate about this, is because if we can take care of one of those legs just by eating smarter, it's going to make the rest of it a little bit easier to tackle. So the other thing, like especially with the thyroid molecules are almost identical to gluten protein molecules. So when I've talked about leaky gut a little bit, and we're going to dive into that a little bit more in our next clinical deep dive, but when you've got perforations in your intestines and you've got that gluten floating out into your bloodstream, your body's going to attack it as a foreign invader. But because the thyroid's molecules are so similar to the gluten molecules, it starts to attack your thyroid as well, not knowing the difference, and that's how people end up getting Hashimoto's and Graves' disease, where you've got an autoimmune condition on your thyroid itself. But it impacts every single autoimmune condition out there. It impacts our brain. And I want to give you guys a really good resource. This is an amazing book. It's called Grain Brain by Dr. Perlmutter, David Perlmutter. He is awesome when it comes to learning a little bit more about how grains and refined carbohydrates and gluten and excess sugars are really impacting our body. So whether or not we have a disease, a diagnosis, we want to live long and we want to feel well into that longevity. And so he is connecting the gluten back to the health of our brain, back to helping to prevent Alzheimer's disease, back to lowering inflammation in our body altogether. So removing the gluten, removing the grains is one huge step that you can take for overall health and longevity, but especially if you are combating and fighting some of those autoimmune conditions. So I wanted to share with you some really awesome products that I use on a regular basis that are grain-free, gluten-free, some alternatives, and then I'm going to show you what I do using almond flour. I'm going to show you how I make my homemade buns that I use for burgers. Some of the kids sometimes will use these in the morning for breakfast sandwiches. 90 seconds in the microwave using almond flour. So I want to show you that too, but I first want to show you some of the alternative flours I use on a regular basis. So I'm not using whole wheat flour. I'm not even using gluten-free mixes of flours. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a second, but I am using mostly almond flour. Awesome. You can make almost everything with just almond flour, so I keep almond flour on hand. Coconut flour, and sometimes oat flour. These are naturally gluten-free. They're not combinations of starches to take the place of regular flour. These are naturally gluten-free flours, and these will not raise inflammation in the body. So oats, coconut and almond, they're not just gluten-free, they're also grain-free. Okay, so these are an awesome alternative, especially for those of you watching grain intake overall. So I have a little experiment we're going to do. I went and I picked up 3 different boxes of pancake mixes. And the Kodiak Cakes is one of the healthier regular whole wheat options. So if you've been listening and paying attention, if it says 100% whole grain wheat flour on the label, this is gluten. Okay, anything that says whole grain wheat, so again, anything derived from wheat, rye, barley contains gluten. So this is a healthier alternative of whole wheat, but this is 100% gluten. I also picked up a quote-unquote gluten-free pancake mix and also a naturally gluten-free pancake mix. So just listen really quickly to the labels. Let me know which one sounds the healthiest. Okay, Kodiak. We've got whole wheat flour, oat flour, buttermilk powder, honey, egg whites, leavening. So not bad, honestly, but it's 100% wheat. So if you are like, okay, I think I can eat gluten, I'm not too worried about it, this would be a better choice for you. Now let's go to the gluten-free pancakes. Easy to prepare, fortified with iron, calcium, vitamin B, non-dairy, King Arthur brand. Whole grain brown rice flour, potato starch, tapioca starch, rice flour, cane sugar, and then a bunch of leavening, xanthan gum, natural flavor, salt. Did you hear all the starch and the sugar in there? This is still pretty high glycemic, so it's still going to contribute to an inflammatory load in your system. Okay, so let's look at this brand, Simple Mills. I love this brand. 7 simple ingredients, almond flour mix. Almonds are naturally gluten-free and it's coming from a whole food source. Almond flour, arrowroot, organic coconut sugar, organic coconut flour, cream of tartar, baking soda, sea salt. That's it. This is the winner. Okay, so if you're looking for gluten-free options, a lot of people are going to just grab this because it says gluten-free right across the front of it. But look for the Simple Mills brand. Write this down if you need to. The Simple Mills brand has a lot of awesome products that are all almond flour based, and they only have between 7 and 10 ingredients in the entire product. So if you're looking for something that's a little bit of a shortcut, you want to be looking for something like Simple Mills or something similar. Let me show you a few of the other products they have because my kids love these. So anytime I'm not making something from scratch, I'm usually buying this Simple Mills brand, which you can find at Whole Foods, Fresh Market, Wegmans. It's out there. Crackers, huge gluten source. So these are all, again, almond flour based. So if you're avoiding grains, this would be an option for you because it's grain free. So we've got all the nuts and seeds, cassava flour, which has a decent amount of protein in it, organic cheddar cheese, sunflower oil, and then it goes through some of the other seasonings like garlic and rosemary and stuff like that. Here's another one. These are, I don't know if any of you have used this brand, let me know. Here's something else that they use. Chocolate muffin and cake mix. Almond flour. So I'm showing you guys this because I use this for my kid's birthday cake. The Simple Mills chocolate cake mix. It makes a great birthday cake. So for anyone celebrating birthdays, this is a great choice. Gluten can be found in soy sauce. So I get something called coconut aminos, which is a substitute for soy sauce. This is completely gluten-free, but it also has some other nutritional properties to it. So this is an option for those of you who are really avoiding gluten. Anything that is derived from, where can I get Simple Mills? So Wegmans, I know, has it. We might have, if you're in a place where you don't have a Wegmans or a Fresh Market or a Fresh Thyme or a Whole Foods, you can also order it from Thrive Market. And I have an affiliate for Thrive Market I can share with you. Where did you say you get the cake mix? Oh yeah, so the cake mix is also Simple Mills. So this would be Whole Foods, Wegmans, yeah, Fresh Thyme, Fresh Market, and Thrive Market online. You have to have a membership for it, but it's a great place to just bulk order a bunch of this stuff. This is really, really good. And I just love it because it's 7 ingredients. Again, it's so, so good for you. But yeah, this is Simple Mills. So all of the Simple Mills brand, I always buy. I'll spend, these are all like $1 more than like the regular gluten-free things. So you'll pay a little bit more, but it's totally worth it. I would rather you just kind of watch for this Simple Mills brand. I should totally be a spokesperson for them. I don't know what I'm thinking. Look for the Simple Mills brand over any of the other like gluten-free marketing schemes that you'll see in the grocery store. Like you walk down that huge aisle where it's like everything's gluten-free. You're gonna be bombarded with gluten-free left, right. I'm saving you a ton of time. Just look for this brand, Simple Mills. It's the best one you'll find, I promise. Another great snack alternative are just plantain chips. My kids were already into this. I'll show you what they look like. Oh, this is a great chip alternative. See? So if if you're kind of into, if you don't mind the flavor of bananas and you like chips, a little bit of crunch, they have all these plantain chips that are seasoned. Like this is just the plain sea salt, but they've got like a chipotle flavored, a lime flavored, where these are really making their presence known as an awesome chip alternative, which I love chips. I could eat potato chips like every day if I let myself, which I don't, but I eat these almost every day. And it's just plantains, coconut oil, sea salt. This is where you guys want to go. This is where you want to start reading your ingredient label, and the fewer ingredients the better. The cleaner ingredients the better. So you can put plantain chips on your shopping list too. Simple Mills, plantain chips, coconut aminos, which would take the place of soy sauce. Here's the other thing, guys. I just want you to know that some of us are avoiding gluten because we have like an immediate reaction to it. I eat gluten, I get a headache. I know that I still have an inflammatory response from gluten. But the other part of it is like the longevity piece of it. We are not meant to be ingesting this much gluten, you guys, like at all. And I'll continue to share some of the studies. This book is amazing, but there are long-term consequences to eating this gluten day in and day out, meal after meal. So the more that you can just, every single time I do a Facebook Live, if you can pick up on like one thing that you can tweak or 2 things that you can tweak, that's what we're going for. These really sustainable changes where I'm providing you awesome swap outs for something that you're already doing that's not, this is so much healthier for you than getting a Betty Crocker cake mix, for example. And it's better. It tastes great. Okay. One other thing, and then I'm going to show you guys this really quick demo, 90-second demo. I wanted to share with you my very favorite brand of pasta, because pasta is a big one where, we'll sit down and we'll have a huge plate of spaghetti and it's like a ton of gluten, and then you're hit with, well, I'm hit with headache, I have to lay down, I get fatigue. Jovial brand, gluten-free pasta. It is 100% brown rice. This Jovial brand is fantastic. You cannot tell the difference between this brand and regular pasta, which is made from semolina wheat. So this was on sale today at the store, so I picked up a few boxes. So yeah, that's my favorite. And I've tried a lot of different pasta brands out there, gluten-free pasta brands out there. Nothing is as good as that brand. All right. Bread, gluten-free bread. I try to get seeds. This is not grain-free, obviously. It still has brown rice flour, but I guess what I wanted to tell you about this is a lot of the gluten-free bread will be found in the freezer section, not in the regular bread aisle. It's found in the freezer section. So you can check that out and then go to the freezer section. And there's a lot of different brands. Usually you're gonna pay a little bit more, like I think this was $5 for the loaf, but I don't eat it much. I keep it in my freezer, and if I know we're going to be eating it, I just take a few pieces out and they thaw in like 10 minutes. Okay, I want to show you this homemade bun recipe, which I think is going to come in really handy for you guys. My kids use this as a replacement for like English muffins, bagels, hamburger buns. It's awesome, and it takes 90 seconds to make. So I'm going to demo that real quick. So you first want a microwavable bowl. I'm using a glass bowl so you guys can kind of see what's going on here. But something that's a bowl that's kind of like the shape of a bun. So this, I'm gonna add 1 egg to this. Oh, I need a fork. Three tablespoons of almond flour. About a tablespoon and a half of olive oil. And then you need a leavener. So a half a teaspoon of baking powder. And then I put like a little bit of salt. And you're gonna kind of whisk it together just like you would if you were making scrambled eggs or something like that. Try to get all of the chunks taken care of, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pop this in the microwave for 90 seconds. And it's like a magic. It's like I have a magic wand. Okay, I think I'm... So, while that's doing its thing, I am going to provide you a PDF file that you can print off where I list out all the foods or food categories that contain gluten, and then all the ones that are gluten-free. So I do have like a visual checklist that I made for you guys, so it's a little bit easier to look at this and be like, okay, is this thing, does it contain gluten, does it not contain gluten? So I'll be sharing that with you as well, which I think can be helpful getting started. Other than that, I would say the biggest thing, if you're not sure if something is gluten-free or not, it's such a big marketing thing. Anything that's gluten-free on a package will say it's gluten-free. See, this says gluten-free right there. This says gluten-free right there. This one, that it's not gluten-free, it just says 100% whole grains. That's a good indication that this has whole wheat flour in it. So you would look at the ingredient label and read it. And if it says whole wheat flour, that is gluten. Gluten is the protein in wheat, in rye, in barley. Does that make sense? Let me know if you have any questions for clarification. There you go. Check it out. So I just take a butter knife and I go around the outside edge. And this is a bun, and it's really tasty. So obviously it's really hot right now, and it's a little bit spongy. But what I'll do is I'll end up cutting. I'll cut this in half and I'll toast it. And toasting it gives it a little bit of more of a bread-like texture. And then I will make it into, like, I'll make ham sandwiches for the kids. I'll put a hamburger in it. I'll put peanut butter on it for them. It's awesome. And it makes a really good fried egg sandwich too in the morning. So this is a really quick hack for you. For any of you, oh, I didn't mix it totally. You can see a little bit egg white. This is a really good hack for any of you who are looking for completely grain-free, completely gluten-free options. So there you go. 90 seconds, you can't beat it. All right, guys, I am going to sign off. I will post that file for you a little bit later, and you can let me know if you have any questions. Hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.